You know what the shake and bake reference is?
Yeah, is that
Ricky Bobby.
yeah. Thinking semi-pro. I watched that one the other night. That one is not as good.
No, definitely. He is so hit and miss, but Ricky Bobby is a fucking winner. All right, Rory. So when the pandemic hit and we went into full lockdown, I immediately was obviously highly concerned. About a quarter of our clients just got fully shut down. Restaurants, wedding venues, and all of this stuff. And obviously there was trouble coming. There's trouble was here. So the first thing I did is I went out and researched, okay, has there been any proven methods in history that help companies navigate a recession? So, knowing it's coming, knowing it's here, arguably, and knowing that this is a full-blown crisis, I wanted to see if there was any evidence, right? Not just theories, not just one guy's story, but actual evidence of a strategy or an approach that could be helpful to us and our clients in, getting through this successfully. So I found three. They were very large studies. One was done by McKinsey. They're a famous brainiac consulting group. One was Harvard. Everybody knows who Harvard is. And the third one was the Bain study. And the Bain study had a very interesting metaphor. They likened recessions to a race where you're entering a steep bank curve. It is the most dangerous time, but it's also the best time to pass competitors. So the opportunity is there and the danger is there. The Japanese symbol for crisis is danger and opportunity, right? So it's that, and they even went further with the metaphor, which I thought was very, very useful. So this is the full quote. So the approach is specifically, as you are entering the curve, you hit the brakes, which means you reduce all unnecessary spending. The next move is you find the apex of the curve. And the apex of the curve is, what is the lane? Pick your lane forward that is safe and takes into account the changed landscape. And one of the things that is different from this, economic crisis than before is we're all locked down. This has actually never happened before. So these strategies from the past have only some value right now. So you turn to the apex of the curve, and then the third step is you accelerate hard ahead of your competitors. And those that did that had about 25 to 30% growth on the other side of the recession. They not only made it through successfully, but then they grew 30% more, where the ones that just applied the first move, just hit the brakes, had zero growth on the other side. So this shows some of the breaks. This is for big business. Look at that difference, right? So 0 and 14% there. For small business, the range is actually much, much greater. Obviously, when you have a bazillion dollars, there's not as much flux. 14% means a lot more for that. But for small businesses, there are huge swings based on this approach. So how then do we spot the apex of the curve? That becomes the question in this new environment. Well, there is good news. Since everyone is forced at home and almost everything has shifted to digital, there are tremendous insights you can gather on how to spot your apex. And you have to combine that knowledge with with the business. So here's sort of our visual of how to do it. You need to stay informed. So you need frontline intel. The digital world provides that if you know how to look. It's also a very, very noisy place. You can't stay informed from the media. They are sensationalist oriented and they only cover certain topics, and then they disproportionately blow those topics up to get eyeballs on there. So it's very dangerous to use them as a source of intel, at least without that perspective on it. Also, social media is dangerous as a source of intel because the most outspoken are the most posters. An example is the Reopen Now crowd is the most vocal by 5 to 1. But the latest study shows 60-some% of Americans, a little over 60, are thinking we're reopening too soon. So if you listen to social media only, you would think the vast majority of people want to stampede out and give each other COVID. So and then the third component is the data changes every day. So you have to be able to adjust in real time. And so you have to pull from the front lines of the digital world what's changing and what your customers want, and then you have to map that to your business strategy. Can you pivot? Just because everyone wants a Ferrari, for example, and you only offer Teslas, that is too big of a gap. So you have to match what's changing with what your business can successfully shift or pivot or adjust to it. And if there is no pivot required, at the very least, you have to address the current concerns and the feelings and thoughts around your product or service. So here's a couple examples. This one is we have a couple restaurant clients, as I said, and by the way, restaurants are a great example. The Rio is one of our clients. Full lockdown hit, and they were out for the count. The next day, Polis says you can deliver alcohol. So the Rio literally pivoted. We worked a couple days straight in a row, and when they reopened that Saturday after he announced it, they were overrun. There was so much interest and so much business. They went from being KO'd to exploding and having a viable chance. And so here, these are some of the digital trends that are sort of counterintuitive, which is why I'm going to share them. So traditionally in restaurants, carryout's a huge term, takeout is a huge term. Obviously right now no one can dine in. And as you can see in this graph here, there's a brand new kid on the block, and it's curbside. Never been searched before, and it suddenly explodes. So curbside is actually searched more than takeout and carryout combined, all basically the same thing. So if you offer curbside, but you're positioning it as carryout, you are missing the vast amount of opportunity there. And then when we're talking about the concerns to spot, you see below here, there's takeout coronavirus. Also a quick note, when you study Google, you realize that people have terrible English, and like you lose a little bit of faith in humanity because of the way they search, right? I'm pretty sure no one wants to take out the coronavirus, but obviously this shows open for takeout, restaurants open for takeout, Great American Takeout coronavirus. So first of all, figure out where the opportunity is, and then the set of concerns you need to address around the opportunity for your business. And a breakout term is something that Google identifies as a 2,500% or greater increase in search volume. So if we look here from January, these were searched, these are not low search volumes. These are all comparative here. So they're search, and then they just explode. And this means, so from pre-COVID to COVID times, it has increased 2,500%. So that is a ridiculous amount of volume and opportunity for restaurant owners. So again, talking about how to spot the apex of the curve, we need intel that is accurate and timely, right? So these are things. So if you want to, is takeout safe for coronavirus? Another breakout term. You can see here, look at the increases for takeout in the nation, and then is food safe? This trend, we have auto repair clients. The exact same set of terms and the exact same set of growth is seen across most industries, especially anything that has a physical location. And then, so when we talk about mapping it to business opportunities, this is key. So Rio did decide to go after alcohol because that's a core part of their business. But another one of our clients, Chiba Hut, that pivot didn't make as much sense. They're already much better set up for carryout and delivery than the Rio is because they're a huge footprint and a big, dine-in location. So we saw, yes, there was some increase in here, but then when we discussed with the owners and leaders of that company, it didn't make sense operationally to pivot to that. And so again, showing how to spot the apex of the curve is a combination of opportunity, danger, and then what can your business pivot or adjust to take advantage of that. So here's another good example. So for an engineering firm, most of their stuff is down. No one's thinking about building right now, except that would be the intuition, but that's not true. One of their key offerings, which is a great lead source, so it's a small service they offer, but it leads to much larger ones, is property surveys. So they had literally, people are sitting around, people who have money are thinking about where and how to leverage it right now, especially, the smart people who have cash in the bank are thinking about making moves into real estate that they've been putting off. They have more time. They're not so hectic in their days. So this key offering is up another 2,500%. That complete news to engineering firms. And what I like about, there is so much more, there are many more apexes of the curves than would be people's intuition, especially if you listen to the media and just human instinct. When we're threatened, we want to retreat. So again, just another good example of how to spot the apex. So you can see the same thing, roofers way up. And it's not just roofers, anything to do with yard work or home repair or even interior design, even remodeling kitchens. That means people are in your house. All those terms have exploded. And some of this, we're getting a dual benefit now where we're going into summer. So some of the seasonality is hitting, and also people are staring at their ugly fill in the blank. And they want to do something about it. So some of these are research terms, right? They're not as action oriented as we've seen in the past, but that's actually the perfect time to get in with them, because they will be making their decisions now. And then when they're ready to pull the trigger, it will be a rubber band effect of those that went with it will just shoot past everyone, as we saw in the former chart. A couple more examples of auto glass breakout terms, tinting, exploding, right? And if you can do it on site, they go to someone's house, obviously their car's outside, so it's a completely safe transaction and none of that. Again, if you are shut down because you're not an essential business, this doesn't help in other than preparing for reentry, which is what we're doing right now. So these are all good terms. This is a scary one, and I think it's one that's worth noting, is 3 in 10, so 33% of the population right now is open to shifting brands. So brand loyalty has been, that's enormous. That's an enormous, so what that means is you can take from your competitors or they can take from you. Again, that idea of it's the most dangerous time, but it's also the time with the most opportunity. We'll skip that one. We'll skip that one. So time to shake and bake. So this summarizes our whole approach. And it's important to note that right now, as we quote re-enter, and there's a lot of uncertainty, some cases are slightly down, some are going back up. It's sort of asymmetrical across the US. And at the very least, there is a massive differentiation on people's attitudes and thinking about how they're going to reopen. So frontline intel pulled very frequently is critical. And then so seeing what is happening and then determining the response, which is not just a digital play. It has to be coordinated with the leadership of the company to see if it makes sense to make the shifts that the marketplace and the digital economy is telling us that needs to be there or that could be there. And then you have to execute rapidly. A day right now is a month before, and then reassessing. And reassessing obviously is like, did our pivot digitally work? And if not, how do we unpivot and go back to something different? Or Governor Polis announced something new. Now we have to pivot again from forces outside of us. So, all right, Rory, what do you got? You got any questions?
I'm wanting to know more about like the execute rapidly. Was that just like being nimble and like being, you're staying up on trends?
Yeah, so execute rapidly. This is the key. So this requires the most coordination between us and the company. So let's say we see a trend that people want curbside, but you can't do curbside. You only have to go walk in to get the food and come back out. So could they get to curbside quickly enough to make that an opportunity to exploit and add that to the apex of the curve approach? If not, then we kill it. So the executing rapidly. So really in determining the response, the response has to include most of the time the ability to execute rapidly. That's one of the preconditions to being able, what's the right play? Now there are bigger long-term changes happening, and we map those as well. So execute rapidly really is, once you figure it out, other people are going to figure it out too. So the thinking behind that is move once you spot that opportunity or your apex and hit that. If everyone accelerates at the same time, you gain no advantage. So it's a precondition in the response phase, but you also again, it has to be a coordination between both companies, and it usually revolves both groups, both teams working together to move that. So that's what that's about.
That's interesting. So it seems like there could even be a piece of like the story before this is like, how do you prepare for innovation, or like because I imagine that some people, while they had knee-jerk reactions when all of this happened, and they paused. I mean, even we took a minute, like, oh, okay, what's happening? But then if your team isn't ready to rapidly move, or even like with leadership, if you can't guide people forward, how, I imagine that that's a hiccup too, but just another thing to consider.
Well, I'll tell you. So I think the number one response, and probably why I got pushed to present this to so many different people, is the human instinct when you're punched in the face is to curl up. And I saw all this bad news and this doomsday, and I started looking. Once I found that strategy, I was like, well, what can I figure out? If there is a way, I'm going to find it, or I'm going to die trying. So that was my attitude. And so if you think there is no way out and you truly believe that, and it's normal to be stunned for a couple of days, especially if you don't see that there is a path forward. Mike Tyson's got a great quote. Everyone's got a plan till they get punched in the face, right? And when you get punched in the face, your whole, whatever you think goes out of the window. And if you see this guy, Mike Tyson, over you, and he's ready to beat you up again and start pounding on you, you're not going to get back up. But if someone like whispers in your ear and is like, okay, he's got a weak knee, kick it. Like, I know you're not allowed to do it in boxing, but let's just go with this, right? So if someone gives you a fighting chance against him, you're much more willing to get up. So the only frustration I experienced in this is some business owners, in spite of the evidence, got in such fear and such reaction that they still wanted to stay curled up because it was that's how they reacted. But that was maybe 2 or 3%. The majority of people, when they saw a way forward, they were like, let's do this.